Tenney.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Castro and Chairman Sears. I didn't hear, I thought you said ISA. I apologize. I just want to thank you to the witnesses. I just have a question I want to first address to Mr. Farnsworth. Mexico's President Lopez Obrador is pursuing a foreign policy that is confrontational, obviously to the United States, to democracy, to free markets. We see the rising trade tensions, record levels of Americans are overdosing, border encounters continuing to rise at historic levels. How can the Vice President achieve progress in Central America considering the deteriorating U.S.-Mexico relationship? And I know you've addressed the border, but if you could just do it again in relation to that issue, because I got a quick follow-up for you on that.
Thanks for the question. This was the basis of Ranking Member Green's question as well. How can the United States and Mexico cooperate on Central America? And I think the short answer is this is a real priority of the President of Mexico. So we have some real disagreements with the President of Mexico, no doubt. Environment, economy, border issues, migration, all these things. But one of the priorities that he himself has expressed is to work together with the United States for development in southern Mexico, but also Central America. And my view is we should take him up on it. And there are ways to really bring together the economies of Mexico and Central America to promote integration into the North American supply chains. And in so doing, what we'll do is not just be cooperating with Mexico, but we'll also be helping to develop Central America in the way that we've been trying to talk about today that will hopefully limit some of the impulse to migrate.
One of my concerns, and I lived in the former Yugoslavia, so people think of it as a benevolent dictatorship, communism light, a lot of those things, but many people don't talk about the barren island called Goli Otok, which was a gulag, a prison for dissidents, that people were sent there even under the beloved Tito leadership, who was, a self-proclaimed communist. But the Mexican president recently boycotted the Summit of the Americas because the Cubans, Venezuelan, Nicaraguan communists weren't invited. How do we deal with this again, once again, this communist threat that's pervasive now, and then the influence of communist regimes like China and other authoritarian type regimes with their ability economically to move into South America and other continents in the world?
This is a real challenge, and yes, you're right. That was his stated reason for not attending the Summit of the Americas. I think many of us were disappointed by that. The Summit of the Americas is specifically a body or a group of democratically elected leaders that's been institutionalized in the Inter-American Democratic Charter, which is ratified by all countries in the region except for Cuba. And so, look, if we want to engage with some of these countries, there are ways to do it, but not in the Summit of the Americas. So I think that was probably the wrong target to shoot at, and it was unfortunate that he chose, in my view, that it was unfortunate he chose to do it. The larger issue here, though, is one that we've seen across the region, and we just saw elections in Colombia on Sunday. You have a scenario where the established political parties are just simply not being perceived to be meeting the needs of the people. And it's not necessarily a shift to the right or the left or the this or the that. It's an anti-incumbency. People are just tossing the bums out. They're saying, look, you didn't provide for my needs. I need something different. And so there's a willingness to take a risk in country after country of non-institutional leaders and leaders who are promising things that in many, many aspects may never be able to be realized, but the promises sound good. And it's what the people are looking to hear. How can the United States respond to that? I think, one of the things that I was hoping to come out of the Summit of the Americas was a robust, ambitious economic engagement agenda led by the United States with willing partners in the region.
Let me ask, so we've had decades of foreign assistance, demonstrated that just the aid alone is not what's doing it. They're obviously being influenced by other forces, other economic strengths, and authoritarianism. What can we do in terms of our foreign aid? What reforms are necessary? For example, in Central America, how can we promote better business investment that encourages individual rights and freedom and entrepreneurship as opposed to, supplanting or propping up these authoritarian sort of communist-like socialist regimes?
I'd very much like our assistance programs to be focused on business development in the context of creating the conditions that will sustain the investments over time. Let me just give you a couple very quick, examples. Things that businesses look at: tax policies, permitting policies, appropriateness of infrastructure, regulatory convergence. I mean, in the Northern Triangle countries, we have 3 small economies individually trying to compete in the global economy. why haven't we seen a greater convergence among those three countries themselves on regulatory convergence, on harmonizing their own economies to make the investor not just look at El Salvador, which is really not a very large economy, but the larger economy of an integrated Northern Triangle. Once we start talking in those terms and integrate with Southern Mexico and North American supply chains, you begin to have an economies of scale that is on its face much more attractive to potential investors as opposed to each country competing for that investment on its own.
I appreciate that, and having an intern from Venezuela who is a freedom lover was really an insight for me last year. But I want to thank you. My time's expired. Appreciate the comments, and I yield my time back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.